Hi there, and welcome to this day in history for February 1st. February 1st is the 32nd day of the year in the Gregorian calendar, with 333 days remaining to the end of the year, except for leap years when there are 334 days remaining to the end of the year. So let's talk about the word February. What does it mean? How did it come about? And how the heck do you pronounce it? Some people lean hard into that first R, as in February. Others sort of ignore that first R and lean into the U, like February. Hopefully, you'll be relieved to hear that either way is acceptable. February or February, either one works. As for myself, I never could quite figure that out growing up, so I just sort of contracted as February. The word February comes to us through Middle and Old English, originally from a Latin word that meant feast of purification. First known use of the word February is before the 1100s. February. Now remember, anytime you have a word that you'd like us to examine in this Word of the Day segment, drop it in the comments and we'll take a look at it. And with that, Edward III, also known as Edward of Windsor, was crowned King of England on February 1st, 1327. He was about 14 years old at the time, so he himself wasn't fully in charge quite yet. He didn't get to run the whole country all by himself just yet. His mother, Isabella of France, and her boyfriend, Roger Mortimer, served as regents, which meant they were actually running things while fronting Edward III as king. They probably would have liked to have continued that arrangement a lot longer than they got to, but when Edward III was 17, he rose up against Roger Mortimer, kicked him out, and began running the country himself. Now, how did it come to be that this 14-year-old boy was made king? It seems that apparently his father, King Edward II, was a hot mess personally and a lousy king besides that. At least a lot of people in that time sure seem to have thought so. So Isabella had Edward II deposed in what one might think of as sort of a 14th century divorce where she gets the kid, the house, all the castles, and the kingdom. See, history doesn't have to be so boring, does it? History's about people and what they do and what happens next. I like to think of it as elegant gossip. Anyway, that's the briefest of backstories as to how and why Edward III was crowned king at the age of 14. Fortunately, it seems like Edward III was fairly successful for most of his reign, and he reigned until his death in 1377 at the age of 64. King Edward III. France declared war on the United Kingdom and the Netherlands on February 1st, 1793. This was part of the French Revolutionary Wars, which resulted from the French Revolution, which had started almost 4 years earlier as the government of France underwent some significant growing pains and major upheavals. For example, first they established a constitutional monarchy, and then they abolished the monarchy and executed Louis XVI and his wife Marie Antoinette. All of this fracas and upheaval was, of course, disturbing to the neighboring countries there in Europe, especially since they were all still ruled by monarchies and wanted that noise in France to settle on down. Settle on down. Some of the countries tried to intervene in France's revolution, with one result being today's item, France declaring war on the United Kingdom and Netherlands on February 1st, 1793. Yesterday, we mentioned that Congress passed the 13th Amendment, and on this day, February 1st, 1865, President Lincoln signed the 13th Amendment. Just to recap, this is the one that abolished slavery and involuntary servitude, except as punishment for a crime. Now, if you'd like to see what I talked about before regarding February 1st, I'll leave a link to a previous episode for you. Tommy James and the Shawn Dells are an American pop band that began as Tom and the Tomatoes in 1959. Tom, then known as Tommy Jackson, was 12 years old. 3 years later, in 1962, they released a single called Long Ponytail. In 1964, they changed their name to the Shawn Dells in honor of Troy Shondell, a one-hit wonder who had a 1961 song called This Time. The Shawn Dells released the 1964 song Hanky Panky and a few others. What we're here to talk about today is that as Tommy James and the Shawn Dells, they released a song called Crimson and Clover in 1968. Crimson and Clover spent several weeks on the charts and began a 2-week run in the #1 spot on the Billboard Hot 100 on February 1st, 1969. Crimson and Clover, Tommy James and the Shawn Dells, link in the description. And I think that's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for watching. Consider subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share this video with a link in your email, messaging, or social media. If you enjoyed this series, check out the playlist that contains these videos, and I'll put a link to that in the description. That description lives on YouTube, so for other platforms, I'll include a link to my blog page that's called No Really. You can also find me on Rumble, BitChute, and Odyssey. All those links in that description. Alrighty, that's all I can think of right now. Thanks again and all. See you next time. This is the birthday.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
I wasn't talking to you. Are you kidding me? Okay, hold on. We got to make that be quiet. You got to read the black part. Hi there, and welcome to This Day in History for, where's your microphone? Okay, we don't want to say the same thing twice. Get your microphone. What is it with you and this microphone? Okay, here we go. Okay, we are still recording. That's great. Okay. How about that? We'll have a lot to edit today. Cacophony is a sound. Cacophony is a noun that you got to read it the right way. Let's start over. It's 8 o'clock, so all of the reminders are going to be dinging. I forgot to turn those off. Okay, stop it. It's 8 o'clock. Don't alienate people who can be helpful to you. Flinging happiness all over the place. Alrighty, back to work. I think we got it this time.